Hi, welcome. So this video is part 2. I've already gone here to your assignment, program 3. Be sure to watch part 1. The things I've already done is I've already gone here and explained the assignment to you. I've already downloaded the incomplete code, and I've already put the incomplete code into my project in Visual Studio. So here, just to show you again, if I go to I like to put it on my desktop, but you guys could, I would suggest making a folder for this class and organizing better than I do. Here's my program 3. Inside I have my source code template that I just downloaded off of Canvas. So this is what I can use as a template to get started. And I already compiled it and ran it, so my application file is here. Now if I decided to quit now and then later I wanted to come back and work on it again, I just navigate here on my desktop to the project folder. And since I've already created a valid solution, I can relaunch Visual Studio with my solution file. Do not launch Visual Studio with a .c file. If you launch Visual Studio with a .c file, it will not create a project. Keep in mind that we're creating applications. We're taking plain text source code and using this environment to turn it into a working application. So you must have a valid project in order to do that. So now to test it, I just go start without debugging and it works. So now it's time to get started. So I've already given you the algorithm here. Basically, number 1, you're going to welcome the user. Number 2, you're going to do initial practice. Number 1, you're going to welcome the user. Number 2, you're going to do your initial practice, but then your initial practice is made up of a bunch of steps. And then you're going to calculate the gas. Calculate the gas is made up of a bunch of steps. So each one of these things that we're going to be doing, welcoming the user, doing the initial practice, calculating the gas, all of these have been broken up into sub-problems. In other words, into functions. So the best way to get started is to start by, first of all, we need to put our return 0, which it's interesting that it compiled without that. So let's make sure that we fix that. All right, so we do have our return 0. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our functions. So our functions are set up like this. You have at the top, you're going to have to add your name, date, and a brief description here. These 2 preprocessor directives are for Visual Studio. This library is for printf and scanf. This library is for the 2 upper and 2 lower functions. These are our function prototypes. These are our own library of functions that we're going to include in our program. And then our function definitions are on the bottom. So the first function definition we're going to do is we're going to welcome the user. So I expect that you would put more information than welcome to this program. I don't think you need to watch me type, but you should put a good explanation in your greeting function that describes to the user what to do. I'm going to build it and run it. Oh, nothing's happening. Well, the reason nothing is happening is even though I've written the definition for this function, I haven't made the call to this function. So when the program executes, it starts executing right here at the beginning of the main function, and then it ends because you don't go anywhere. So here you need to call your greeting function. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining function calls and prototypes and definitions because Module 3 has a bunch of videos and exercises and sample code and notes and slides that explain all that to you. All right, so now let's try our function call. Let's try and build it with our function call. All right, so now welcome to this program. Keep in mind that that's not really a good welcome message, but you need to add more to it. And you just go into here, into your function definition and add more to your welcome. The next thing we're going to do is implement our initial practice function. Our initial practice function, we're going to have a character. we're going to ask the user to enter the character. I'm not going to do both upper and lowercase. I'm just going to do one case, and then you're going to have to figure out how to add the rest of it. Now, what I like to do here is when I start writing this, before I even start writing my code, I would start to put my steps here. Ask and get the initial. So write my own little algorithm in here, and then it makes it easier for me to add the instructions. So here I want to ask and get the initial. Here I want to create and print lowercase. And here I want to create and print uppercase. I think that's all you need to do, but let's go back to the instructions to make sure. So you just need to get the letter, tell them what they entered, and do the lowercase and the uppercase. Okay, so I need to also echo the the character that was entered. So in order to make sure I don't forget things, I have just written the algorithm for this subprogram or this function that is part of my program. So this little function called initial practice is a little subprogram and can be used as long as you include the prototype and the definition. It can be used in any of your programs. So that's why it's like a little subprogram. All right, so we're going to get the initial, scanf. When you're scanning into characters, only when you're scanning into characters, you put a space between the quotation mark and %C. Remember to add your ampersand in scanf. And then we're going to echo what was entered, because the user could enter upper or lowercase. So you entered %C. And now we want to make an uppercase. Well, now we want to make an uppercase version and a lowercase version. So I need two more variables, one called low and one called up. You can use better names than that as well. So actually, I'll call this lowercase and uppercase. All right, so how do we get the uppercase and the lowercase version of the letters? It's pretty simple. There are functions called toLower and toUpper, and they're part of the ctype.h library. So we're just going to make a function call to the toLower function. So the way you make a function call is you put the name of the function, parentheses, and a semicolon. Now this function, you need to give it something in order to make it work. You need to give it the initial that the user entered in order for it to change it. So this function does take the initial, and then you're going to call the toLower function. It's going to jump to the toLower function. You're going to give it the initial that the user entered, and then it's going to return to you the lowercase version of that letter. If the letter was already lowercase, then it's going to still be lowercase. All right, so now we're going to print that onto the screen and say the lowercase version is, and you want to put the right variable there. And I'm going to leave the uppercase for you to do, but it's the function toUpper, and it works exactly the same way. Now we'll build it. I did get a warning. The reason I got a warning is because I've declared this uppercase variable and I'm not using it yet, but that's not going to stop. I'm not done with my program, so that's not a problem at this point. And it says, welcome to this program. If you notice, it doesn't ask me to enter any initial. It doesn't do anything with any initial because I have not made the function call yet. So I need to go back to my main function here and call that function. Remember that all function calls have a name, parentheses and a semicolon. The initial practice function doesn't take any arguments, so I don't need to pass it anything for it to work, and it has a void return type, so it doesn't have to be in the form of an assignment statement. In program 4 and also in module 3, you will see a lot about functions that have different return types and take different types of arguments. So let's try it again. Every time you make changes, you should always test your program. Make sure that it works, it succeeded, and now right here it's calling my greeting function, and then it's in my initial function, so I'll enter the letter T, and it says you entered T, the lowercase version is T. Let's try it with entering an uppercase, T, the lowercase version is T. Let's try it with a number. So numbers don't have upper and lowercase versions, so it doesn't really matter, but numbers are still characters. Actually, anything on your keyboard is a character. So the next step, now that you've completed this far, is to do the uppercase and finish that. When you finish that and you tested it and you make sure that it works, then it's time to start working on your calculate the gas price. So here, what do you need to do? You need to declare your variables. Then you need to ask and get the information. I'm going to let you complete that. Then you need to make the calculation. This is incomplete. I'm leaving some things up for you guys to finish and print the result. And then of course, once you do your calculate gas price function, then you will make that function call from the main. If you have any questions at any time, please ask. Please do not try to do everything at one time. Do one thing, make sure it works. Just a few lines of code, test to make sure those compile, test to make sure things are working. The idea is to try to identify where it is that you're having trouble and be able to get ask very specific questions when you're getting help. But I'm very happy to help you. As a reminder, there are many ways for you to get help. Be sure when you are looking for help, how to get help is right here on your page, modules, how to get help. When you're asking for help through email, be sure that you attach a current version of your code. You can also go to the get help from your TAs, email your TAs, or go to their office hours. We also have WebEx Online Programming Lab, which you all have been enrolled in, and you can go and get help from them.